Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Ready, Set, Action. This is your guide to navigating the world of business growth. I'm Christina Whitmer, a marketing veteran, and
And I'm Deb Horowitz. I'm a talent executive.
yes, and so each episode we share actionable tips and insight for small and mid-sized business owners, and we focus on growth tactics and sales and employee leadership tactics so that you can gain this type of experience that you can implement pretty much right now. So that's our goal. Our guest today is Karl Walinskas. He is CEO of Fedtrax. He's also an expert in federal revenue growth through business development for innovative technology firms, including AI, ML, cyber, data analytics, and also aerospace. So, welcome, Karl. Good to have you today.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, we have a few questions for you. So, quick little 30 minutes will probably run pretty fast, but we're trying to get as much information from you as possible. So, I
I'll
want to
do my
talk
best.
first. Yeah. um, I just want to ask you first about federal growth strategy for, you know, when we think about a small business owner in like tech space or that sort of area, are there tactical steps that they need to take to sort of transition from commercial sales to pursuing federal revenue opportunities, or is it kind of an all or nothing? Tell me what you know about that.
Well, the answer is, and I think this is a little bit rhetorical on your end, there's lots of tactical steps that you need to take. Um, that start with your strategy and why you're in the business in the first place. But getting past strategy, if I had to name, say, the first thing you would need to do tactically, change your website, add a federal page. The federal government likes to think they are pistachio ice cream. They are just unique and as all get out. So even if you're, say, an IT company and you're going to offer them conceivably the same thing you would offer your commercial clients, you need to have a federal page that's focused on their problems. Uh, a little bit of research is required there into what their mission is. So when I say they, if your focus is the DoD, or I guess DOW now, um, that's what you would focus on. What solution are you offering to their problems? They are really, really big on you having done your homework and understanding what's important to them. But at the very least, you need to look like a federal contractor or somebody who's in the federal business, and that starts with having a federal page. So most people have a website that has, uh, you know, services or clients or things like that. They might have utilities or banking. You need to have one that says government. So that's first and foremost. As a part B to that, there is something that I'll call the coin of the realm as far as communicating small businesses in the federal space. It's called a one sheet or a capabilities brief. That is a PDF, and you could do a whole seminar on how to do this, and it's more difficult when you haven't been in the federal space. You have to sort of cover for things that they might be expecting that you don't have, like federal contract vehicles. But this is the currency that they trade in as far as if you meet federal people and or prime contractors that you need to communicate with, that tells who you are, what you do, why it's unique, how you fill a market niche into the federal space, and as much possible about your history and past performance referenceable experience. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. You sort of triggered a question. If I sort of adding a section of my website that talks about my federal, focus, do I get does the way I talk in the other side of my site sort of do me a disservice if I'm not sort of does it sort of, do I need to speak differently or, be a little different style across the board, do you think, to really compete?
I think that's going to depend upon what your style is.
Okay.
As you know, I mean, the favorite word in the federal government is never a word; it's a 3 or 4 letter acronym. So
Hmm.
they speak in a lot of acronyms. You don't necessarily need to do all that. What
Right.
you need to do is just show that your offering, which might be thought of as commercial, has a federal application.
Gotcha.
Okay, that's why I say you can just make it a page of your website. Now,
Hmm.
some businesses will say they're going to go whole hog and they're going to say whatever, it's ABC Business Government Services.
Mm-hmm.
They'll create a whole separate website.
Yeah.
That's a different thing. Now you can completely have a different voice on the website as the rest of your website. You don't have to change it. So that's one option if depending upon what services that you offer.
Right.
You know,
Makes sense.
but at a minimum, you need to show that you're in the game. Because if you hand somebody a business card and they go to your website and I was just at a conference, and if you go up to the director of an agency or a program manager, and the first thing they do, if they look at your website, they're going to look to see what do you offer the federal space, and if it comes across as everything you do for commercial, they're going to think I'm not special, so why should I contact you?
That makes sense. Yeah. From a talent perspective, I was curious from a small business or medium-sized business perspective, when you're going after these contracts, how have you seen other businesses structure their talent attraction strategies so that they can make sure they have the right talent in place to deliver on the AI or the machine learning or the cybersecurity services?
Okay.
And I guess the second part of that would be, should any of their employees also be highlighted on this specific page to show their depth of experience, or is that kind of irrelevant when you're first going after the business?
Let me answer the second part first. This is my opinion. So full disclaimer, I'm a hired sales gun, right? That's what I do, is I help small businesses get in there. So I'm not hiring these technical people. However, I work with a ton of them. Okay. So, but when you say spotlight people on your website, not unless you have somebody who's done something extraordinarily recognized by a third party. And as this conversation unfolds, we can get into that. And I'll touch on what makes a competitive advantage and what doesn't. And a lot of people think they've got a competitive advantage with people. You really don't, unless you've got, the Nobel Prize winner or something that's third party credentialed. You can't say I've got great people, because it's not like everybody else says, you know what, our people kind of suck, but we're cheap. No one says that, right?
Right.
So now the first part of your question, again, I'm not hiring these people, but I can tell you what I see. First of all, there's a lot of rotation on contracts in the federal space, even of technical people, right? So some of these contracts, I'll call them a 1+4 contract. It's a 1-year contract with 4 years of options, is meaning you basically have a 5-year contract unless you screw it up. Okay. Then that contract will get recompeted at the end of 5 years. And it's a typical federal contract in technology. Sometimes you lose, the incumbent loses, and a challenger takes over. One of the first things they do is poach the technical talent of the people who are there. And if those people were comfortable on that contract, they'll usually jump ship and go to the new company because they want to continue to work with that customer, that federal customer. Okay. So prepare yourself for some turnover. But what I've seen that people do is, these people hate boredom. Okay. They hate being stuck in a rut. They want to have opportunities for growth. This goes beyond salary, right? I think there's a lot of people who work in the federal government market that take maybe less salary than they could elsewhere. I see a lot of people in the federal space who jump from the federal government to commercial, federal government to commercial. You see this a lot with generals and colonels and things like that. I mean, they're chasing dollars, okay? But a lot of the technical talent who do things like cybersecurity or artificial intelligence, Gen AI, that sort of thing, they want a challenge. So I would be promoting how cool your stuff is, what you're offering, what your opportunities for growth. If they're stuck in a rut, do you have a job rotation practice where they can move from role to role so they don't feel like they're just trapped in this boredom every single day? Tech people are like that. They're itching to get out. You know, what do you need in terms of personality, in terms of their ability to sell, because they're on the ground inside an agency. A lot of companies think that their technical people are going to they don't even need any business development after that because we got technical people on the ground. Typically, that's fool's gold. That doesn't happen. If
Hmm.
you're actually looking for somebody then you need to ask for that skill, if that makes sense, because but most people put their heads down, they do their technical thing, they get their job done, and they go home at the end of the day. They're not snooping around for new opportunities. So if you're looking for somebody who's going to be sort of an insider to do that, that's a different skill set. But yeah, my focus would just be on change. Um, if you need cleared people, they're going to pay a lot. You're going to pay more for them. Cleared meaning they have a security clearance, secret, top secret, SEI, etc. One thing that companies do is, and maybe it's after a certain period of initiation, but they offer to sponsor that clearance because that costs money for an employee. But that clearance is a marketable thing on their resume. So if you've got an employee who will sponsor that clearance, that also can make you more attractive. I'm focusing, based on your question, on how do you lure people? How do you get
Yeah.
people? I'm not necessarily focused on them and their skill set and how to get smart people. You have to figure that out. But I'm just talking about how do you make your job more enticing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you for that. That's very insightful.
Um, I so a little bit about the pipeline and the sales process, and I assume a lot of these issues are not just for people seeking federal contracts, but maybe there are some different nuances for federal specifically. But have you seen specific mistakes that firms make when they're building that federal business development pipeline? I think you just hinted on something there, and then how can they make it more consistent? How they can they fix that to ensure more of a consistent growth, especially with these contracts, which are could be long, but then all of a sudden could be gone, I guess.
Well, I'd say the biggest mistake people make is they respond to what they think they can do or deliver on versus what they can win. Responding to federal proposals is a costly process. And small businesses typically come in and they don't have as much discretion as more established businesses in the federal space. More established businesses in the federal market will look at opportunities and they have something called a gating process. I have one client right now. We're going after an opportunity with Special Operations Command, and I have to fill in the series of this formal gate slide that says, you know, who are the competitors? What are we doing? How are we going to put, what's our P-win strategy, et cetera? How are we going to win in order to proceed and apply resources to it? Now, and the reason I say this is small businesses want to fill the pipeline with a lot of things, but a lot of it is fluff, and they have no chance of winning. If you're a small business and you come in and you going after Homeland Security and you have no experience in Homeland Security, chances are that you're not going to win that unless
Mhm.
you're doing something that's so unique, you bring such a secret sauce
Right.
to the table, right? Then they're going to be contacting you, quite frankly. But if you're responding to a set of requirements, that's the first mistake. Learn how to exercise a little bit of discretion. And this is going to get worse, right? Because generative AI is easing the pain of responding. Okay, so people are able to using Claude or ChatGPT to respond for them. Understand the government acquisition people are using Claude and ChatGPT to screen your proposals and read them. Okay, so they're getting more and more proposals as a result of generative AI being able to generate them. Doesn't increase your chance to win that much because you still got to check all the boxes. So I would
Mhm.
say that would be the first thing. In order to get around it, I develop a rigid process for how you evaluate RFPs, request for proposal, or RFIs, request for information. And that would include determining things like how you can win. You know,
Hmm.
what's different about yours? What's your unique value proposition specific to this opportunity? Okay, how are you going to figure out who else is on this? What they call a capture strategy. So, and most importantly, is there a way that you can get some customer intimacy where the customer knows who you are before you're responding to a RFP. Okay. So that's part of what I do, right? So people hire me to go into a place like DARPA, and I get my clients meetings, and we're just spinning around ideas in the meetings with the DARPA program managers, trying to give them ideas on a program they might want to get started. And even if they morph it and then they'll put it out publicly, they've talked to us. They said these guys had some good ideas. So when they see those proposals come in, they probably read them with their eyes and not with an AI agent.
Carl, do you feel like, and whether it's federal or not, do you feel like when they're sort of screening, using AI to screen RFP responses or bids or whatever it is, do you think they're looking for things like this is too generic and obviously they don't know what they're talking about, or this is repetitive, nothing's unique to the, like, are there certain signals, do you think, that they're looking for specifically that would exclude someone?
Every acquisition is different, but yeah, 100% what you're saying is accurate. Yes, they're going to be, if you throw generic proposals, and this is the risk with generative AI.
Yeah.
Because it makes you very lazy. It's like, when the calculators came out, kids started to forget how to add, right? And you can carry that on, right? So it makes you very lazy. But yeah, they also, to me, I can spot an AI generated proposal or paragraph or joke a mile away. They can too. And if they think that's what you're doing, even though that's what they're doing, to screen you, if they think that's what you're doing, they'll discard you out of hand. But they are looking for very specific things. Just mirror this up to what Deb would deal with from a resume submitted for a job. Okay, they're looking to check off certain boxes. Did you meet these requirements? Do you have the required certifications with the people? Do you have the security clearances that might be necessary? You got to start with that. That's just answering the mail. Okay. If you've got all those things, that's where you start identifying your uniqueness. The problem with technical people sometimes is the opposite of what you mentioned, Christina. They get too specific. They start unlayering the atom when the biggest thing that the government is concerned with is, okay, demonstrate some technical competency, but tell me how you're going to de-risk this. How are you going to deliver on this? If something goes wrong with plan A, what's plan B? Most people don't think about putting their sort of execution plan in a response to an RFP. They start going off on the PhD credentials of their chief scientist. And if your proposal response starts to look like a textbook with a lot of Greek letters in it, you might be going too far in that direction. You might want to drift more towards a project plan. I hope that answered your question. I was rambling.
Absolutely. Yep.
Carl, you had mentioned about trying to build the relationship ahead of time before the RFP or the RFI. And of course, from a marketing perspective, that's the ideal position that you want to be in, right? Is to kind of come with the ideas and even perhaps help them formulate what they should be evaluating in an RFP.
The word we use is shaping. It's
right.
Shaping, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a little bit, it's somewhat from size businesses are accustomed to doing from the standpoint of networking and building those relationships. But are there specific branding or like reputation building tactics that you would recommend, they kind of start developing, way out in front of going after some of these contracts?
There's lots of reputation things that you can do, but following up on the first thing we talked about was having your federal website. You've heard this phrase ad nauseum, unique value proposition, but unique is the key word, right? Don't sound the same as everybody else. If you're the same as everybody else, you've just become a commodity that's racing to the bottom on price. That's the only thing that's going to distinguish you in any effort that you go after. Okay. And you'll probably get beat out by somebody who might have stronger credentials within a given agency. Because when everything looks alike, the only thing different is price. In federal acquisitions, they have this phrase they use for how are we making the decision, and they call it best value. And another one is called firm fixed price. And best value is supposed to determine the best value, but it certainly ends up looking a lot like firm fixed price, or sort of like you meet the minimum requirement. Now, what's your price? Because if they have 5 companies who come in and they all seem to be the same, well, best value is out the window. There's only one thing to differentiate them, right? So they go after price. So that's what I would do. I'll give you an example. Just last week, I was in Baltimore in a cybersecurity show called DISA TechNet. And there was tons of technology vendors there, and there was large companies there. There was like GDIT and Leidos and some of those companies in there. And then there was a ton of small businesses. And again, the focus here is cybersecurity. I can't remember walking through the aisles of that conference on the show floor with my eyes glazed over, thinking every single booth looks the same.
Wow.
Every single booth looked the same. I'm exaggerating for effect here,
Yeah,
right? But I'd say 90% of the booths,
Yeah.
they had the government words. We're mission driven, full life cycle cyber, all these fluff words that maybe you need, but they didn't tell me what they did. And most of these companies were some version of what we would call endpoint protection, somebody who's going to figure out who got through the front door and what do we do about it, and how do we analyze it and how do we mitigate it, etc. But I just didn't see anything that jumped out to me as being different. And in cybersecurity, that is very difficult to do because it's all ones and zeros, right? So it is words, but that's the main thing I would do to position yourself in the market is, and in order to do that, you have to research, right? And you have to research your target agencies. That's one of the things you need to develop is a list of target agencies. It's better to be a meaningful specific than a wandering generality, right? So you want to go after who you can best meet their priorities, their needs, their what they call mission space, how you're aligned to that, and then determine what you can claim as competitive advantage and what can't be. So we touched on this earlier. Too many people think things like people and quality are a competitive advantage. They're not. Why is that? I apologize if you hear something going overhead. There's an air show in town, and the jets are starting practice. Unless you've got somebody who is a Nobel Prize winner, or if your company has won the Malcolm Baldrige Quality Award, you can't claim that you've got better quality than everybody else. If you just say it because everybody else is saying it too. So it's never a competitive advantage if other people can claim it. Okay? They all can't claim to win the Malcolm Baldrige Award in 2026. There's only one. Okay? Or one in each small business category or whatever. So that's really, really important. Understand what's different. If you've developed a certain method of artificial intelligence and how it unpacks medical records and aligns them to the human genome or whatever, now you're getting into something that maybe everybody can't do. That's what you stand your leg on, when you position yourself.
That's smart. I mean, it's so hard, even federal or not, it's hard to say no to things, and that's when companies start to look the same because they don't want to narrow down what they're offering, and so, yeah.
That's that can be a critical error, and it is. It's a difficult thing from a market positioning, right? Because you want to think you want to be open to as many things as possible and say you're all things to all people. But if you're that, you can't win that many of them.
Yeah.
So it's better to be something very specific for specific. This all drives your research, okay, and who you go after and who you're trying to send your message to.
Yeah.
The more specific you've got that audience identified and the more specific your message is to them, you're going to be better off than trying to cast a wide net and say you're going to be open. You may be able to do that, and you'll still take work to keep the lights on, for general IT things or whatever. But to your point, Christina, if you do that, you're letting circumstances drive how your business gets shaped.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you probably don't feel too good about that looking 5 years down the road.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Thank you. Yeah, that's a good one. Real quick, let's talk about resource allocation. So obviously these contracts and securing these contracts has a long lead time. Any sense on that balance of like, I need money now to grow the business and keep it stable versus what I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 5 years down the road? Any tips or things you've seen for that?
Well, look, the lure of federal contracts are they're the gift that keeps on giving. I talked about the 1-year contract plus 4 years of options. Boy, it's nice to tie up your resources and know they're taken care of for 5 years unless they screw it up, right? But it takes a lot of work to get to that present. So the first thing I would suggest is in the federal space, you need to prepare for a minimum of 6 months to 2 years without any significant federal revenue. This just has to do with what you described earlier, Christina, about how long it takes to get federal contracts.
Right.
The acquisition cycle. I was dealing with people, say in October of 2025, and what happened? There was a federal shutdown. Okay, for 40 days. That screwed everybody up. And by the way, when the government people come back, it's not like they come back and hit the ground running. They spend a week complaining about what just happened and 2 weeks trying to get themselves back into figuring how to work at their desk. I mean, it really throws an impact into how functional things are. So you have to be ready for that. We talked about unique positioning, but you need to spend your BD efforts on things. If you're new to the game, your best bet in most cases is strategically trying to partner up with prime contractors, because you're not going to have what they call contract vehicles. Now there's tricks to get in front of them too, because they're just as busy, if not more busy, and they'll shut the door in your face just as quickly as a government official will. Okay, so, but it's easy to identify them with some of the federal tools that are out there that scan the government market, tools like GovWin, and there's numerous other ones that you can figure out what prime contractors dominate which agencies, which ones are winning contracts. So you know that if you've got something specific, say for Department of Labor, and there might be 6 contractors inside the Department of Labor who win all the business, you might want to be focused on those people. Okay. I don't know if that answers your question, but
so this is kind of like out of the blue, but given the current administration and the emphasis on waste, fraud, and abuse from that perspective. And it seems like what we hear in the press is a lot of stories about no bid type of contracts being awarded and things of that nature. How, do you advise small and medium-sized businesses that there is a place and there is opportunities to win, our contract right now after in ways that you may have seen with other administrations, or really what is the temperature like out there right now?
I lost a little bit of what you said, but I got the gist of what it was. I can say this as a taxpayer. The whole Doge thing was highly overblown. In the first 4 months of 2025, it really looked like things were going to happen. Elon Musk had a counter out there and found $1 trillion in savings. And he sort of foolishly believed that the Trump administration could actually enact this and do that. Yes, some people left because they didn't want to deal with the new administration and things like that. But when Congress went to approve the budgets, I mean, they couldn't. There was like a $9 billion thing that they couldn't even cut, and he had $1 trillion of potential savings. And of course, the fight between Musk and Trump is a thing of legend at this point from at that point. But that was part of it, right? Because he thought, hey, I did all this work and the government's not. Then what did we do? We passed a big, beautiful bill with the largest defense authorization spending in the history of the country. So yes, there's opportunity out there. The federal government is spending money. Are certain agencies asked to tighten their belt more than others? I would say certainly. I'd say the ones who got targeted publicly, maybe USAID, places like that, are not as fruitful as they were to folks in the past. The other ones that have, based on scale, much more fraud, waste, and abuse, likely, are places like the Department of War, but they weren't under the crosshairs as much. So there are opportunities out there for small business if you play your cards right, but you have to be very strategic about what you go after, who are your friends, and what your proposition is.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah,
Thank you so
for
much,
that.
Carl. So do you want to, Deb, are you done? Any more questions, or as we wrap up? You good? Okay. Carl, what's the best way for people to contact you? Let's share that before we close out.
Easiest way to contact me if they want to get a hold of me is just the website.
Okay.
That's Fedtrax, Fedtrax.com.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll put that in the comments on LinkedIn and YouTube as well, just for long-term longevity's sake. So great. So thank you, Carl. Again, we really got some great information. I personally got some great information too, just about the broad branding opportunities and things like that. So
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thanks to everyone for joining and watching us. Don't forget you can follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube. And we look forward to your questions and to the next live stream. So everybody take care.
Catch
And
us
thank
on
you.
Spotify too, or wherever you
Yes,
get your
yes.
podcasts.
Wherever you get your podcast. So, all right. Thanks, guys.